Leftwing California is back in the news with a bill that seeks to make it illegal for retail stores to have boys and girls departments in their stores. Bernie Sanders defends his socialist policies, and Joe Biden's gaffes are so bad, even Australian news is covering it. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. Mine was pretty relaxing. It was good to kick back. I did some work in the studio. I did some testing, which I'll tell you about for new features on the show. But let's dive into the news, okay? I want to talk about Joe Biden. I want to talk about Bernie Sanders, because these guys, Bernie Sanders, who loves him some Cuba, and Joe Biden, who doesn't know what's going on, those are the two that are left. Those are the two running for the Democrat nomination. The Party of Diversity and Inclusion now has two ancient white dudes running for the top of the ticket to take on President Trump. It's absolutely amazing that it's come down to these two. So let's talk about Bernie Sanders, all right? This is a guy, he was on Fox News Sunday yesterday, and he's talking to Chris Wallace, and of course, they're going over a ton of things. One of them that really stood out to me is this aversion to billionaires, this hatred for billionaires, that they shouldn't even exist. You know, the people that had ideas that maybe start out in a garage and change the way we work and shop and are productive, you know, those people, those are the ones he said shouldn't even exist. So they were talking about it, this Chris Wallace on Fox News, and here's what Bernie Sanders had to say.
Do people like the Walton family, for example, that own Walmart, they're worth well over $100 billion when their workers are making $11 or $12 an hour. No one is denigrating people who have made significant achievements, but enough really is enough.
All right, so he says enough is enough. What does that mean? Seriously, what does it mean when a person's a socialist and they say enough is enough about the amount of money someone can make through their hard work, their investments, their savings, things like that, their income? What does enough is enough mean? Does that mean they're going to cap what a person can make? Does that mean they're going to mandate that you can only hold a certain job and make this much over the course of a year or a lifetime or whatever? That's government control, folks. That's socialism. And that's what Bernie Sanders is talking about. And then the one word that sticks out to me whenever people talk about stuff like this and the billionaires and the bad, evil company owners and stuff like that, the word that sticks out from his clip is worker, okay? Because a worker does not exist if a person doesn't have a job. And jobs don't exist unless there are companies doing the hiring. The fact that he talks about workers from these places, from Walmart and other places, means that a company has come in and is hiring, and people are stepping forward and saying, I'll take that job. I will work. I will earn money by providing some kind of service to this company. That's how it works. Workers are employed. Companies don't exist merely to employ. They are selling a good or a service, and socialists like Bernie Sanders don't understand that at all. So then Chris Wallace asked him about a comment made. This guy was a prisoner, a U.S. prisoner in Cuba, and he said that Sanders allegedly made a remark about Cuba while this guy was a prisoner, and here's how that went.
There's a story that came out this week that back in 2014, you were part of a congressional delegation that went to Cuba, and that you met with an American political prisoner there named Alan Gross, and he says this is the conversation the two of you had.
He said, quote, I don't know what's so wrong with this country. How could he be so insensitive to make that remark to a political hostage, me?
So I'll use the word allegedly because that's what's being said. But allegedly, Sanders said, what's so bad about Cuba? This is a nation that killed political prisoners, that imposed socialism, that drove the economy into the ground, human rights into the ground, just like we see in Venezuela now. And here is Sanders' response.
I remember that trip very well, and I remember the terrible conditions that Mr. Gross lived in. His teeth were rotting. I did not make that statement. Why Mr. Gross is saying that, I have no idea, but I did not make that statement. Look, Cuba is an authoritarian country.
Okay, so Sanders talks about authoritarian countries. Well, what do authoritarian countries do? They tell people where they can work, how much they can make, what jobs are approved, what industries are approved, all of that through the government. Kind of sounds like what Bernie Sanders and AOC and others believe with their socialist policies. That's an authoritarian regime, an authoritarian government, and that's exactly what Bernie Sanders and AOC want. It's just nuts. So next, I want to move on to Joe Biden because, you know, we talked about him on Friday with Relaxed Brain, but his gaffes are gone viral. They are worldwide. And I was watching a news report this weekend from Australian news, Sky News in Australia. And it was so funny because they just summarized not only Joe Biden, but the whole Democrat campaign for president. Here's the lead in to their segment.
I wanted to speak briefly about the Democratic presidential race. Isn't it just perfect that the party of diversity has got rid of every woman and person of colour, including the fake Native American Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren and the fake Mexican Beto O'Rourke, to end up with two old white millionaire men? One, a socialist who had a heart attack just 5 months ago, and one so confused that he has trouble remembering where he is and why he's there.
All right, I think that's the best lead-in I've ever heard that summarizes the state of the Democrats and the Democrats running for president. It's the best summary I've ever heard. Yet they put this montage together for Joe Biden, and it's just perfect because you know that all of these clips are likely, if Biden is the nominee, going to make it into President Trump campaign commercials. There is so much ammunition there, so much to choose from, you'll never run out. Here's part of their clip.
Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
Oh my gosh. So in a previous show, I covered the 150 million gun deaths. I mean, that's half the country. That means you shouldn't go outside. You shouldn't go to work because you're going to get mowed down. That's what he was doing with that stat. But I had missed the 720 million women going back to the workforce, which is over twice the amount of population in the entire country. I missed that one. But here's more from Sky News.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
All right, next we're going to move on to California because I don't know if you've heard this. It's been in the news a little bit, but there was an article this weekend by Selwyn Duke over at the New American that caught my attention. He summarized it really well. It's a bill that's going on out of Leftwing California, and it just shows how radical the left is and how driven by an agenda they are that common sense just goes out the window. History, sociology, biology, they all go out the window in an effort to push whatever movement they are. There's no differences in the sexes. Gender is just a state of mind, that kind of thing. From stats I've read, 3 in 1,000 Americans are transgender. That means 99.7% of the population is not. Okay, it is not a normal activity, and yet they're trying to push it in every realm of society that they can. Now, this bill says that it would make it illegal. Stores would be fined, retail stores, department stores would be fined if they had boys and girls sections in their stores. And here's the report. Designated AB 2826, the legislation's header reads, introduced by Assemblymember Lowe, which doesn't pertain to IQ, but Silicon Valley's Democrat politician Evan Lowe, mandating gender-neutral retail departments, the bill reads, in part that it requires a retail department store with 500 or more employees to maintain undivided areas of its sales floor where, if it sells child care articles, children's clothing, or toys, all child care items, all clothing for children, or all toys, regardless of whether the particular item has traditionally been marked for either boys or girls, shall be displayed. Beginning on January 1, 2023, the bill would make a retail department store that fails to correct a violation of these provisions within 30 days of receiving written notice of the violation from the Attorney General liable for a civil penalty of $1,000 as provided. What in the world? What is going on? Brad Dacus over at the Pacific Justice Institute, Center for Public Policy, put out a statement regarding this bill, and here's what he said. California is killing freedom, innovation, and common sense with its endless bans, fines, and mandates. Compassion for our LGBTQ plus friends and neighbors does not require us to embrace absurdities on gender. No child should be bullied or stigmatized, and neither should the state bully retailers into making it harder for moms and dads to find boys and girls clothing and toys. It's time for voters to demand more accountability from their elected officials. Absolutely. I mean, what is going on in California that this keeps going and going and going? It's time for voters to wake up and realize that common sense is being thrown out the window in places like San Francisco and in the entire state. So next, I want to talk about absurdity. I want to talk about COVID-19, the coronavirus that is just, media attention to it is sweeping the nation. It is a frenzy. It is absolutely going crazy. And folks, we just got to take a step back and say, hold on a second. What is really going on? And how bad is this really? Because precautions are great, but mass hysteria is not.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
So this is what I'm talking about. It's like the media is going nuts. And I know panic sells and hype sells and the media is going over all of this stuff. But there's a part that can't help but think that they're doing this as a next thing to try and bring down the Trump administration by overhyping, by driving markets down, by causing turmoil, when a little precaution and common sense would go a long way. I mean, events are being canceled. Travel is being canceled. My church yesterday, the service is being altered because of this. And people need to keep things in perspective. There was a health official, not my opinion, a health official on TV yesterday who said that the COVID virus, which a form of coronavirus, is what causes the common cold. This isn't that. This is worse. But 85% of those who get this COVID-19 will have little or no symptoms. 85%. Those at risk are the elderly or people that are already messed up. They're already sick. So take precautions, but don't overreact. In last week's flu report, weekly flu update from the CDC, they noted that in this year's flu season, 34 million Americans have contracted the flu. They've gotten the flu. 350,000 have gone to the hospital, and 20,000 have died this season from the flu. So if the media were hyping that to the extent that they're doing coronavirus, we'd never have a public event again. We'd never travel again. This is the flu season. So yes, you should have hand sanitizers and take extra precautions, but we do that every single flu season. There's nothing more that you can do except for those kind of precautions, except those who are more susceptible, again, the elderly and those already sick, take precautions. Be careful. That's what we can do. We don't need this hype. We don't need events to be canceled. It does nothing for the public, and all it does is drive markets down and cause chaos. And that is exactly what I think the media and the Democrats are trying to do. All right, folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.